Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time it is that you're listening, we are so glad you're here. I'm the Reverend Sheryl Butler, and this is Journey Road Ministries, where we seek to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. Today is Sunday, the 25th week of Ordinary Time. I've been traveling the last couple of weeks. Last week I was up in Washington State visiting my aunt and uncle, and just absolutely beautiful country up there. And this week I'm in San Francisco, one of my favorite cities. So I'll also be sharing this message Sunday with my church community here, Forest Hill Christian Church. So we'll start today with the gospel reading, which is from Mark chapter 9, verses 30 through 37. They went on from there and passed through Galilee. He did not want anyone to know it, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him, and 3 days after being killed he will rise again." But they did not understand what he was saying, and were afraid to ask. Then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they were silent. For on the way they had argued with one another who was the greatest. He sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all, and servant of all." Then he took a little child and put it among them. Taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such a child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." May God bless the reading and the hearing of the word. Well, my last sermon, I talked about living our faith in the world, not just talking about it. How easy it is for us to judge those evangelical leaders who got caught in sex scandals but failed to see our own shortcomings. And I talked about the epistle of James, where on the surface, James' faith without works seems to be at odds with Paul's saved by grace only. But as a reminder, James and Paul were addressing two different questions. Paul was addressing the problem of some who were teaching that it was necessary to follow the law to be saved, while James was addressing the problem that some were saying if you believe, it didn't really matter what you did. Now, reading their whole works, you will find they're actually in agreement. We do not earn our salvation, but if we truly have faith and believe the teachings of Jesus, it will be reflected in our actions in the world. But do our inner failings negate any good we do? A question to ponder. Well, James said, "Draw near to God, and God will draw near to you." Right before that verse, Jesus said, "Submit yourselves to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." So this requires action on our part. We again see that our relationship with God is collaborative. God will not do it without us. Draw near to God. And we cannot do it without God. Submit to God and we can resist evil. I like to think that we all do the best we can at any given moment. Sometimes our best falls short, but sometimes it soars. And as Maya Angelou said, when you know better, do better. But too often we know better, but we don't do better. Again, I think a person is still doing their best at that moment. We are evolving, I believe, not at the same rate. We all have some hardwiring, and it differs from person to person. This is probably why trying to talk to a person wired differently usually produces no results and often animosity. It's kind of like speaking two different languages. But even hardwiring can be changed. Electronics was a hobby of mine when I was younger, and one of my projects involved taking a speaker, and by making a small wiring change, the speaker would become a microphone. And I know my spiritual hardwire has changed as I got older and had a lived experience. I'm no longer a Christian apologist like I was in my 20s. I come to believe God doesn't need defending. Sometimes, however, a person changes, but the same hardwiring is there. For example, a hardcore evangelical spends their youth trying to convert everyone to their beliefs and then becomes an atheist after a crisis of faith. And then they just go around trying to get people to convert to atheism, so their wiring hasn't really changed. They simply shift from religious zealot to an atheist zealot. But what is the message we're to take away from this? How do we live our faith in the world? Again, Jesus tells us how. Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all. We are to put our self-interest aside and be of service to all we may encounter. We are to serve the common good. Our opportunities today, in regards to the pandemic, is to help protect others from COVID by wearing a mask and getting vaccinated are simple ways to serve others. And for those who would insist that they are protected by their faith in God, so do not need masks or vaccines, do not understand the scriptures. As Jesus said in Matthew 4:7, again it is written, don't test the Lord your God. Or the translation I like, don't put God to the test. God has given us the ability to solve problems of this world, but it is a collaborative effort. We cannot reject God's gifts of science and then, when we succumb to an illness, wonder why God has failed us. God will not do it without us, but we cannot do it without God. Draw near to God, and God will draw near to you. Amen. So I'd like to close with something I read the other day that is reflective of our world. As the world fights to figure everything out, I'll be holding doors for strangers, letting people cut in front of me in traffic, saying good morning, keeping babies entertained in grocery lines, stopping to talk to somebody who is lonely, being patient with sales clerks, smiling at passers-by. Why? Because I will not stand idly by and live in a world where love is invisible. Join me in showing kindness, understanding, and judging less. Be kind to a stranger. Give grace to friends who are having a bad day. Be forgiving of yourself today and every day. Be the change. Be the light. Start today and never stop. Go in peace.